So just a thing about myself, I left everything I was doing before to just work with social innovation because I really believe in companies that are doing the right things. And I founded a company myself with my wife that I would not recommend to everyone, but in my case is going perfectly. I'm going to start with a story because my talk is going to be about what's the convergence between social innovation and open innovation. The story is about DKK, which is a company that almost nobody knows. It's the 1990s, and that's when they discovered that fridges, they produce something called chlorofluorocarbons, which were the cause for the ozone depletion. So one of the first companies to react to the crisis was Greenpeace, that brought together approximately 40 engineers from all over the world to develop a technology which is called green freeze. The green freeze in the 1990s, together with DKK, which was a company from Eastern Germany, they started producing these new fridges that would actually solve the problem of chlorofluorocarbons. 35 million green freeze are still produced yearly. 450 million tons of CO2 emissions were avoided, and the company miserably failed. And that's interesting because it failed because it was copied by everybody else, but by all its competitors, because they simply left the innovation open source. And this story is fascinating for one reason, because what's the role of openness and transparency in solving big challenges? On the one side, you got a company that failed completely and miserably. On the other side, a innovation that went through the market and managed somehow to solve part of the problem. So what I would like to discuss about is just share stories, because I think that's way more interesting than me just giving theoretical examples, but just share stories about the different approaches and influences of openness in social innovation. I would like to start with one example about technology. In this case, it's a company that shared the technology but didn't fail. It's an Indian company. It's the biggest non-profit organization in India. It's called Sulabh. This company is trying to solve the problem. It's Bindeshwar Patha that is trying to solve the problem of untouchables, that for people that do not know who are these people, it's the lower caste in India, and they collect excreta or crap with their hands in the house of the people that are slightly wealthier. And he first developed a dryer toilet that enables to take away the demand from the untouchables. And then with the money, he started developing the first public toilets in India with a technology that enables to produce energy from the methane and like fertilizers and water. And with the money that they make from these public toilets that right now are in over 250 cities, he actually makes trainings for these untouchable people so that they can actually become touchable. So it's interesting because all this technology is completely open sourced, and they started inviting other companies all over the world to replicate what they're doing because it was more important to actually solve the problem than making sure they could take a patent and then just keep this kind of innovation for themselves. Another good example of it's, in my opinion, ownership. That I have no idea if you heard about Juno. That's the founder of Viber that right now recently sold Viber and was financed over 10 million euros to create a company that will be opposed to Uber. The point is that it's about the platform cooperativism. There is a big movement right now because many people are saying, is this sharing economy with so many companies that are actually externalizing the risks to the people that are part of this crowd economy? So they simply started creating the cooperative. They started providing resources and services that no other company was offering because the employees or the people that were working in the network were never involved. And it's interesting because there is already a large conversion of Uber drivers that are joining Juno, and there is a viral marketing that is happening because of this happy driver that for the first time, they were given the chance to be part of the network and own actually the network. Product development. I wanted to come with a Polish example, at least originally. This is a great example of open source ecology. Marcin, is actually a PhD in mechanic engineering, And he actually inherited a field from his grandfather. And at some point, he decided to start cultivating this field. And he bought a tractor. And the tractor broke down several times. He went several times to fix it. He couldn't actually sort out the problem. And he started developing several blueprints with a community of 80,000 people on how to build all the tools that civilization need in every place. And they cost approximately 3 times less than if you actually go and buy a tractor with the cheapest price that you can find, tractor or any other kind of tool. And the beautiful thing about all this community of people that are co-creating these tools that might seem ugly, but trust me, in places like Africa, they are absolutely appreciated because it's really difficult to work with the bottom of the pyramid. And for the first time, if you come with something for which you do not pay royalty and you have the opportunity to reproduce it at a much cheaper price, then you're given an opportunity also to developing countries to start solving certain problems or to accelerate development. Are you still with me, right? Yep. Awesome. The next example is about problem solving. Rajiv before started mentioning this example. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail. This guy is right now working for Google, and he's famous for having gamified from protein folding to RNA, structures. So they started actually creating a 3D model on how to fold proteins. Why? Because actually proteins, they are one of the causes on how HIV, cancer, and Alzheimer, they start spreading in the body. And at the very beginning, it was only the University of Washington, D.C. that was having this 3D model. And suddenly they decided to actually open it to a network and consortium of universities so that all these researchers could actually start working together on the 3D model, applying enzymes to make sure they could find the right structure that would not let the protein bend. And finally, they decided actually to open it to the general public, until one kid of 16 years old managed to solve 6 of the never bended proteins that researchers were working for 30 years. And they asked this kid, "Who are you?" And the guy said, "I love Tetris." So it's really interesting because in this case, it was the openness to take away something from professional and enable also normal people to actually start playing the game. And when they did the following version, which is called Eterna, also enabling the people to find stable RNA structures. And so people that were not professional to start debating about things that everybody would have thought that were beyond them. Next example is about strategy. That's an example about what me and Ruxandra are doing. So we simply created a crowd accelerator to support social good ventures. It is a combination of 3 trends. So we take social entrepreneurs or any company that is making profit. So it's not social work. It's making profit and also making sure you're promoting social equity and environmental quality, enabling these people to actually crowdsource feedback and validation from their stakeholders in order to validate their business model. And everything is based on the theory that customers help validating the value proposition of a company. Stakeholders can help a social enterprise to validate everything from the marketing strategy to how to measure social impact. So we're simply, in other words, taking these beautiful butterflies, social innovators, extremely motivated to save the world. We help them organize everything about what they're doing, and then we try to connect them with the right people that can help them validate everything about their business model. A good example is Jared White, and he is the founder of a company in Uganda which is called Pulse. One of the main reasons why women die in Uganda is because they're pregnant, the roads suck, and they never get to the hospital on time. And so if you are not in a big city where there is a big infrastructure, it can be extremely difficult to get to the hospital on time. So they started developing this kind of crazy ambulance that you can either attach to the bicycle and then you run to the hospital or to the closest road, or people can actually start pulling. And when they came, they came as an NGO to the platform, and they were really wondering, how can we make this a business so that we can actually get the hell out of Uganda and try to sell also somewhere else. And so, we get them to share everything that they were doing about their business model, like share all the challenges that they heard about the business model, and then suddenly enable the people to contribute depending on what skills and competence everybody had to help the project. And it got the idea actually from the people to go to the companies and ask for advertisement in the cargo ambulance. And in this way, it was not anymore asking for donations, but it was paid for advertisement. And right now, is finally scaling the business because it became viable. So what is happening with all these projects is that we started creating community of practice, making sure that all these incubators, university, and organization could connect all these cohorts of entrepreneurs with all the mentors, the investors, the citizens, and the experts that can provide the feedback that can help iterate the business models of companies that are trying to solve or tackle key challenges. And given that we're working with several of these organizations, then we try to make sure that all these different community of practice communicate with each other. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a cross-pollination about the best practices that can help consolidating the market towards a more sustainable practice. And the next example, the last example, is about implementation. This is a story that I heard at Crowdsourcing Week in Denmark. And there was actually a crowdsourcing week also in a place called Vålerim, which is, I would say, in the middle of nowhere. I know there is someone from Vålerim here. I do not want to be offensive or anything. But it's a beautiful example because as every rural area, you might have noticed that people tend to go away from the little village in order to go to the big city, because in the little village there are no opportunities whatsoever. And in the north of the world, people are going towards the central. So people from Vålerim are going to Stockholm or to Malmö in order to find jobs and so on. So it was about saving the local economy. And what happened is that the municipality, because this little village has 800 people, and that's a fraction, so they do not have the mayor in place. They said, well, guys, we're going to close the school because you're too small. It doesn't make any financial sense to have a school in a place with 800 people. And they said, yeah, right, no way. So they closed the school, but then they made a cooperative with 200 people, and they say, we're going to make our school. So collaboratively, they actually managed to create a school that is co-organized and co-managed by 200 citizens. And they saw actually that it worked, and then they said, can we do something to really, use this place in a smarter way? So they decided to do a hotel cooperative with 300 people and all the village participated in painting the walls and building the place so that they could actually get people to this place, and through this non-profit cooperative kind of approach, bring money back and wealth back to the entire community. And finally, there is the last thing of all, they created something called the Village Team, which is a business incubator in a 800 people village, which is a kind of incredible example. I didn't see anything like that in other small village. So all this to say, after this example, what's the role of openness and transparency in social innovation? Definitely the fact that we are enabling participation to solve problems that no organization should be entitled to solve alone. Then replicating certain ideas so that rather than protecting and making sure that you are enabling a company to thrive, you are accelerating the solution of the problem. And then working smarter, meaning it is key to stop reinventing the wheel. Thank you so much.